It's time for the ghost with the most, the guy who put the laughter in the hereafter, the one, the only.
Just say it!
Beetlejuice was released in 1988, written by Michael McDowell, Larry Wilson, and Warren Scarron, directed by Tim Burton, which of course means that music was done by Danny Elfman. Rumor has it that this movie was almost called Scared Sheetless, which was a joke proposed by Tim Burton that people started to take seriously, which I assume he immediately regretted. But you gotta appreciate a good pun. This movie currently has a 7.5-star rating on IMDb and 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. Beetlejuice stars Michael Keaton, Gina Davis, Alec Baldwin, Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, Jeffrey Jones, and Glenn Shaddix. Let's set the scene. The Maitlands have decided to take a staycation where they're going to spend some quality time together and renovate their home. Little do they know or expect that all of this quality time will be spent in the afterlife. People who swerve to miss hitting puppies don't deserve this. Basically, they die and become tethered to their home. This would be just fine if the home wasn't immediately sold to some obnoxious, bougie, uptight New York family, the Deetzes, and their relatable goth daughter, who decide to immediately undo all of the renovations that the Maitlands did to remodel the place in a modern, upscale, abstract fashion. Even if the Maitlands try to leave, they can't. In their parallel afterlife dimension, if they step outside their house, they're met with endless sandstorms, desert, dunes, and these violent sandworms that try to attack them. Can you imagine not being able to leave your home lest you're faced with certain doom? What's that like? You could almost call it some sort of, I don't know, what's the word? Seclusion? No. Quarantine? Ugh. Hashtag 2020. Unable to leave, the Maitlands then try to spook the Deetzes out of their home before all of their renovations are undone by the ghastly taste of the wife, Delia Deetz. But they haven't quite mastered the art of the scare. They resort to calling on spirit for hire, Beetlejuice, who's all but delighted to run off the Deetzes. At a price. The Maitlands come to realize that the Deetzes aren't all bad. Lydia in particular is more of a friend, and they don't want to see her befall any harm. Lydia is an iconic character, and I adore the way she's played. It's dark, but it's not over the top. It kind of reminds me of some of the people I hung around with when I was in my early teen years. It makes sense for the story that she's the only one out of the characters that we know that can actually see the ghost, but in actuality, she's not that strange. I like to believe that the only reason she can actually see the ghosts is because she admits she read their handbook. In reading up on this movie, I saw a lot of descriptors calling out Beetlejuice as a poltergeist, malicious spirit. He even calls himself a bioexorcist, like an exorcist but for people. In the end, he's just another ghost. He's another dead guy, but he's an opportunist. Some of the hints he drops makes it seem like he knows a way to get back to the living, or like he's under some curse that he's trying to break. Either way, dude's got goals. Supposedly, Michael Keaton ad-libbed 90% of his lines, and his character's only in about 20% of the movie. The movie spawned an animated series, a video game, and a Broadway musical 30 years after it premiered. There were also talks for a sequel after this movie was initially released, but let's all be thankful that never got made, because the running title was Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. Thankfully, the sequel has been indefinitely shelved. What did I like about this movie? This movie is great. It's spooky, it's goofy, it's creative. I like that the suicidal victims run the civil service in the afterlife, kind of like a DMV where there's just so much paperwork piling up. It's suggested that Beetlejuice actually killed himself because Juno references the fact that he used to be her assistant, and all suicides end up in civil service. Apparently, it was a botched hanging due to heartbreak, which might also explain the comment he makes at the wedding where he says, "I thought I was only going to do this once." I also really appreciate that everyone cast in this movie does such an amazing job. You can hardly tell that the guy starring in this movie as the titular character goes on in the following year to become Batman. It's not just the cowl, it is a testament to his skills. My other favorite performance is perhaps Catherine O'Hara. She's just the perfect amount of crazy in this.
If you don't let me gut out this house and make it my own, I will go insane and I will take you with me!
What didn't I like about this movie? There are a few things. There are a few confusing points in the story that were probably cut for props or timing. The story mentions in passing that you spend 125 years as a ghost, but then what? There's no indication of what happens after that, and I feel like the Maitlands, who are newly dead and very confused, would have asked that question. Then there's the small matter of the Maitlands dying on a bridge. Well, you know, under a bridge. But then they get home. And they don't remember how. When they go to the afterlife, they say that haunted houses are easy to come by. If haunted houses aren't easy to come by, where do people end up when they die? Or if they're in the sand dunes and get eaten by snakes and end up back at the civil service office, where do they get sent? It's a small detail, really, but I mean, at the end of the day, this movie is one of my favorite spooky flicks for nostalgia reasons, so I'm really stretching to find things that I can nitpick at of what I don't like. I can forgive these tiny details because they have nothing to do with the story we're watching, really. It's more just me wanting to learn about the universe in which this exists. And I can always just think back to the receptionist with the slit wrist telling us that death is very personal. What's the moral of the story? Life, or the afterlife, I guess, is about compromise. Both families were stuck in this house together, so they gotta find a happy medium. And I don't mean a psychic who's going to help them communicate with each other. And now for the Beetlejuice drinking game. Drink anytime anyone tries to say or says Beetlejuice.
Don't even say his name. You don't want his help.
Drink anytime the desert dunes or sandworms are shown.
Damn sandworms, 13%.
Drink anytime outside guests arrive at the house.
Otho, you left the city for me. I am so happy.
You know, Otho, the art magazine people. That Jane who keeps making Barbara feel bad for not having kids. Drink anytime Delia's sculptures are shown or mentioned.
This is my art, and it is dangerous.
I typically interpret this rule as drinking at the beginning of a scene if the sculpture is shown in the background. But if the sculpture is mentioned or moved during that scene, I'll drink again to acknowledge it because it's being showcased. You can interpret this rule whichever way is best for you. Drink anytime the Maitlands attempt to spook the Deetzes.
Because those sheets, they don't work.
Thank you for watching the Beetlejuice drinking game. I hope you enjoyed this and have fun trying out the game yourself. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. You can also comment below and recommend movies for future drinking games. I mean, they do call him the ghost with the most. Maybe he'd be really fun to hang out with. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice.
Oh, come on, don't go yet.